Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order the board meeting for the Lynn Haven CRA. The meeting is now in session, and the second item on the agenda is the public commentary. So if I have any members of the public who have anything that they would like to talk about, either on this agenda or other items, please feel free to do that now. Mr. Walker.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. As a citizen with public commentary, on the agenda you have coming up the annual report, and I had pulled it out and I read it. And just for my information and what I observed is that thing is so outdated, it's pathetic. Bad choice of words, I apologize. We should be reviewing that. You'll notice I'm talking to you as a citizen. You know I'm a member of
Absolutely.
the advisory committee, so, but this should be said. What I wanted to point out though is looking at the budget of what you approved at the end of year, fiscal year. I don't understand how you did that because you didn't have the budget in front of you. You didn't have the package. So as a citizen, I can't understand how you can approve something you don't even have. Number two, looking through the annual report, it's reported down there. It's actually the way I figure it, as I've been watching it for many years. I'm watching the decrease in the balance of what we have there. And I've noticed why we're doing that, why we're losing money in it. That's not the important thing. The important thing is to establish the fund balance at the end of the year. Way below what was programmed in 2003, excuse me. We promised, and we were promised that we would save our money as best we could to come up to a certain principal, that we could use the interest from the principal plus the TIF, and we could do our programs. Notice that ever since that time, we did get up to $1 million. We had $1 million there in the fund, and we were doing pretty good. All of a sudden, you'll notice our fund balance is at $270,798. Okay, we have an outlay, and you'll look up there, and you'll see the outlay is almost close to $300,000. Part of that, most of that, is salaries, promotional things that deal with education and etc. training and that stuff. That's quite a lump. So we're not going to get ahead here. We're not going to get up unless something happens. We're not going to get an increase in the TIF because after the hurricane, most of the values, luckily all values will not go down because TIF is solid. It's solid. It cannot go down. But we're not going to get ahead, and therefore we're going to be lacking in being able to do our programs unless we do something about it. The something about it has to be the fuel depot. Maybe somewhere we can figure out where we're going with this. I'd like to just make a point that we're losing money, we're not gaining money, and we still have programs. The CRA Advisory Committee is the only committee that has been meeting with citizen input in this town for the last 6 months.
That's not quite accurate, but go ahead.
Not quite, what am I, 5 months?
No, not the time that there have been meetings of other boards. There have been meetings of other boards. The beautification board had a report just recently that I read, so I know that one's met.
Okay, that's this weekend.
No, recently, but not this week.
I didn't hear about it because I was looking for that. Okay, I stand corrected, thank you.
But I appreciate all of your other information and
most of the boards,
points well taken.
most of the boards have not met, which had citizen involvement in it. We've got to get back, and this should be brought up to the commissioners, got to get back to putting citizens in there with the checks and balances.
And I don't think, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt where you
finish.
Go ahead. And I don't think that there's a purposeful intent for the groups not to meet. I think that people are still recovering from the hurricane. People have not really had time, they just haven't had the time. And I actually have been encouraging people through my social media, to apply and to become involved and to get things going again, as well as I know the city's done the same. So we are cognizant of the fact that we need to get everybody moving again, but I think that you'll see people get more interested in the goings on of the city as we get further away from the ground zero of the storm. I think we're starting to look better, but all of your points are certainly duly noted by me, and I appreciate them. Anyone else would like to speak? Yes, James.
James Hans, 429 Ohio Avenue. It's a business. I'm chairman of the CRA board. Right now, I understand that everything is kind of frozen or just put on hold, which is a natural thing after a storm. Do you know about how long that will last?
Well, I'm not sure what you are referring to about the frozen or hold.
I understood that that all these programs and everything's on hold is what I understood.
There were comments made by previous city manager that budgets were frozen, hiring, firing frozen, those kinds of things. But as far as I know, and if I can be corrected by attorney or acting city manager, nothing that I know of is on hold, other than just that we're in a transition period. Obviously, right now. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong. Please. And I need assistance. I'm not sure. I was just trying. I don't know what.
I think at the last meeting, the CRA board put all of the incentive programs on hold.
Okay, and I remember that. Is that what we're referring to, like the storefronts and
That's exactly
okay,
correct.
okay, I'm sorry.
Everything is on hold
Okay,
at
yes.
the moment.
Okay, now I'm with you.
I was wondering, is that going to stay that way for a while, or is it going to begin to come back?
And I think that'll be something the board will have to discuss and decide upon. I can't say my opinion because then I'll be giving my vote in advance, but
I understand.
there we are.
Well, the CRA board has met, and they have got together, and their concerns are in line with each other's, that to attract business, to help our city as far as our citizens and in our parks, and that was their priorities in their level. Let you know that so that we move forward. We will be able to meet, and we'll actually have some maybe good recommendations for the board, and we'll be prepared, and we want to participate and be involved with this with y'all.
So tell me your three priorities one more time.
One is attracting business
Right.
to the city of Lynn Haven. The other one is the citizens in their homes, and the other one is the parks. Now those are prioritized kind of in where I was. There was a couple of the board members that there was parks first, and then homes and businesses, but those are the priorities that
Okay.
we've decided on, if that helps y'all in any way.
It does. It really does.
And
Thank you.
we fully intend to meet and have some real good recommendations for y'all.
We appreciate you, and we appreciate all your business has done for Lynn Haven to help us. I know you've done a lot of charitable things, and we appreciate that.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
It's a privilege to be a part of Lynn Haven. I love Lynn Haven.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? The public commentary. Okay. We'll move on to item number 3, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from, before I go there, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Antonius Barnes from the meeting today?
So moved.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? And there is no second, so that motion dies. Okay, then moving on to item number 3, the approval of the meeting minutes from January the 8th, 2019. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion of the minutes from January 8th? Any from the public? There appears to be none. Almost said the wrong. Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so the minutes do stand approved. We've all got our names and titles correct now. Here we go. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding the reappointment of CRA Advisory Board members James Mary Ellen Carroll, Judy Riera, and Richard Walker. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? You guys are in with this? Any objection?
We are.
Okay.
We didn't object.
Okay. So there's been a motion, a second, and no further discussion. So Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tindall,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, it stands approved, and we thank you all for your willingness to serve, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Item number 5 is the discussion and possible action to approve the CRA annual report for fiscal year 17-18. Mr. Jonke, would you please give us your comments?
Sure. The CRA, like every year, has to prepare and approve an annual report that summarizes all the activities that were done with CRA dollars during the last fiscal year. So this report really reflects everything that started October 1, 2017 all the way until September 30th of 2018. You may wonder why nothing was mentioned really about Hurricane Michael, because and the answer to that would be all of this happened after that time frame. Now the next annual report will talk about the impact of Hurricane Michael and what kind of changes the storm created. This report is providing an overview of the financial activities. We started with a fund balance, just for the record, with $549,857. We received revenues in the amount of $304,005. Had total expenditures of $583,064, leaving us with a remaining fund balance of $270,798 at the end of the fiscal year. Staff is requesting approval of this report as presented.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the report? Any discussion? Go ahead,
sorry,
Commissioner. Commissioner Tender?
I was thinking before I spoke.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush the process.
No, that's okay. I do have a question. Do you have any means, or what are your thoughts on increasing the revenue for CRA? I mean, if what Rich is saying is, that it was just 5 years ago or 6 years ago, it was at $1 million, and now we're down to 270. What are your thoughts on that? How do we increase that? And I guess I'm saying this to the board as well. The fuel depot thing, I think we've got our hands behind our backs there, I think, for the next few years. So I don't know how we're going to, generate any funds from there.
Well, this fuel depot idea, we obviously last year we tried to include the fuel depot, and we got some pushback from the county.
A lot of pushback.
And
yes.
so that's why we didn't pursue in that direction. We can't just increase our revenue. I mean, that's the purpose of the CRA is to make an investment up front, and so that people will make additional investments, and which will eventually increase the taxable value of the CRA, and then we will see the revenues coming in. So actually, in CRA theory, sitting on $1 million is actually counterproductive.
Okay.
Because you have 30 years. This is your time frame with an option to expand or to extend this for another 10 years. That's your CRA lifespan, and within those 30 years, you're supposed to make an investment, ideally early on, so that you have many years for the funds to come back into the CRA bucket. So they're just different approaches. Some CRA boards, they are very aggressive, and they issue a bond, for example, in the first or the second year of the CRA, and make the investment. They build a marina or whatever the improvement is, but they're also taking the risk. Other CRAs are a little bit more conservative, and I would consider the Lynn Haven CRA a little bit more conservative in terms of spending the funds here in the CRA.
I know that we talked about this, and the mayor made a statement that we would have to discuss this, but since none of the programs are on hold any longer, I wanted to kind of talk about the fact the residential program, with so many houses being destroyed, and now I see corners, I see property everywhere that has nothing on it. Um, I don't know if you're considering doing that, $5,000 to have somebody rebuild there, but I think we would spend a fortune if we did that. I would much rather see it go into businesses and attract more businesses and that kind of thing. But that's just my opinion, one way or the other. I know we're gonna discuss it, but.
We would also make a fortune. So it's, yes, we're spending some money, but we're also getting it back. And I think the neat part on this incentive program is you can really backtrack it. You can really look, okay, 3 years ago I made this financial decision, and because of that, we made this change in the CRA, the tax increment, and this is the benefit that we're getting out of it. So you can really calculate it exactly to the dollar.
But even the homes that are being destroyed now, are we not making any tax, or we're not making anything on the property? Somebody must own the property.
Well, for the incentive program, anybody that has a vacant lot could apply for this incentive. So, and there could have been a building on it that was destroyed by the storm, so that could be definitely a candidate for it.
And do we have numbers on that? How many vacant lots there are? Could we even afford it with 270,000? I mean, there's a lot.
Well, we used to, when we started this incentive program, we had about 100 vacant lots in the CRA, residential vacant lots. And that number went down to maybe 75 to 60. Now, after the storm, I don't know exactly how many homes have to be torn down. And this is still kind of like a vague number, because some buildings are already gone, others, they're probably still in the process, and it will take a few more weeks before we know.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I,
Sure, Commissioner Russell?
then, Mr. Jenkins, this is a completely unrelated question to the budget, but I wanted to ask you this. Is there getting any traction in the state legislation? I mean, I've been reading that they're wanting to disband CRAs. And that's my concern is, you're looking at the 30-year cycle with a 10-year expansion. I mean, have you heard anything about what's going on there, and if they are going to try to force CRAs out, or are they going to term them out and not let them have the extensions?
There has been some discussion recently I think they tried to pass another, or introduce another bill. We went through the same process about a year ago. At the end of the day, there are some, elected officials in the state of Florida that don't like CRAs, and they may think that this is an outdated tool for a community to revitalize their downtown area. You also have to keep in mind the CRA, this whole tax increment financing tool was established in the late 1970s, early 1980s. A lot of communities back then had to deal with blighted downtown areas, and that was the answer, really. That's when, and actually Panama City CRA is was one of the first ones here in the state of Florida that had a CRA, and because of that, they started making these improvements to Harrison Avenue, for example, and that really revitalized the downtown area. A lot of communities participated in this since the 1980s, and we're kind of running out of communities. So I can understand why some elected officials are asking these questions. Do we still need it? Because we already use that tool. It's been 30 years now, and maybe it's time to retire this program. But obviously that's up to the...
And if I may interject, you were talking about Tallahassee today. I even heard some discussion in one of the meetings that I was in Tallahassee, and the League of Cities has taken the position, and especially this is very applicable to our situation, that the CRAs have been one of the largest tools in affordable housing.
Yes.
And right now that's going to become such a huge issue for this area. And so I think it's going to be difficult for our local representatives to fight against CRAs at this point in time, just because of that fact. But I believe Commissioner Friend had something else.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, and Ben, I don't want to put you on the spot, but as you know, I love the incident program. I appreciated it when you brought it forward. I've been very fortunate that I've seen the return on investment on several properties. And just so we're clear, what we voted on today that's the year to date. I mean, that's the end of the year number. So that's your budget for 2000 through the end of 2018. And so I'm just curious, where are we at? I mean, because I know we've stopped the incentive programs, but do you have any ballpark balance?
Okay, so we ended the fiscal year 17-18 with about $270,000 in the bank, and then on January 1 is the deadline for the city and the county to send the tax increment financing check to the CRA. So in January, the CRA received a new funds, and I think the total amount was around $300,000 again. So we are at $570,000, more or less, less the operating expenses, and then there were also some purchase orders issued since then. So you would have to subtract that.
Okay, thank you.
Were there any other questions or discussion for Mr. Jenke? So we've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the public on this item? Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
I'd just like to add one thing. The discussion that the commissioner brought up, I mean, that was very relevant. That was Governor Christ. He came out and said, review all the CRAs. And that was back when Ben was right, back about a year ago. And we're hearing it again. And Ben has watched it, and we know that there are people that believe that it's outlived its life, okay? And I know when he started that out, he's not governor anymore, so.
Any other discussion from the public? Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll for approval of the CRA annual report for fiscal year 17-18?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so the annual report is approved. Thank you, Ben, for all that you do. At this point, then, the CRA meeting for March 26th is adjourned, and we will begin our regularly scheduled Lynn Haven City Commission meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you for being here.